Hello folks, and welcome to the Epic Flight Academy. Let's talk about what it means to be an instrument-rated pilot. Now, what are some of the requirements for this pilot in terms of their certificate and their medical and IDs? Yes, folks, that's right. We are in the instrument rating course. My name is Mike Thompson, and remember, to be successful, it's going to require you to study this course online, watch these videos in parallel to that content, and you are going to want to review all of this content with your flight instructor. Now, let's take a look at this first slide. We're talking about the pilot, and we're talking about documents in three primary areas. You can see that here. The pilot certificate related documents, the medical, and the ID, the government issued ID. So let's take a look at these in order. In order for the pilot certificate to be current, the pilot must have a current biennial flight review, and that is FAR 6156. Now, notice that regulation talks about 1 hour minimum of flight and ground. Talk to your flight instructor about this, because while that may be the minimum, that is not always what's necessary. Depending on the pilot's experience and how frequently they've flown, they may need to spend more than 1 hour on the ground and 1 hour in the air. So review that with your flight instructor. Now, the next part to notice on this slide is the recency of flight experience. Now we're moving to 6157. And here's where we talk about acting as a PIC and carrying passengers within the preceding 90 days. You must have performed 3 takeoffs and landings, etc., etc. And it makes a difference if it was day or night. Review that content specifically with your flight instructor. And be sure that you understand the definition of night. The FAR's definition of nighttime is different than the light requirements when I have to turn on my position lights, and that is different from the night requirement for my 3 takeoffs and landings for proficiency. So be sure to review all 3 of those with your flight instructor. Now, still talking about the pilot and their certificate currency, this slide calls our attention to the pilot's instrument experience. Now we're talking again about 6157, specifically paragraph C. So review this with your flight instructor. In the last 6 months, the instrument pilot must have had 6 instrument approaches, holding procedures and holding tasks, and intercepting and tracking procedures through the use of navigation systems. Now, when we talk about the last 6 months, okay, first of all, we're talking about calendar months. And I want you to take a look at this slide and see on the bottom of the slide, we're starting at month 0, and the green arrow shows us working through the first 6 months. That's when I should have met my 6157 Charlie requirements. Now, what if I didn't? What if it's just 7 or 8 months later? What happens? I want you to talk to your flight instructor about this. You have an additional 6 months to complete what is called an IPC, or an instrument proficiency check. All right, now let's take a look at the pilot's medical certificate. So we've looked on this slide, you can see we've already looked at the certificate itself. Now let's talk about the medical. Is my medical valid? Now we're jumping to FAR 6123, and again, I want you to review this with your flight instructor. As you know, there are 3 different classes of medical: first, second, and third, and it depends how old you are. Are you over or under the age of 40? And how do you intend to use this certificate? So review that with your flight instructor to make sure that you have a current medical. Finally, take a look at this slide. As we discussed the pilot, now we want to talk about a valid government-issued ID. Well, what does that mean? It means it must be government-issued, there must be a photograph, and it must be currently valid. Now, two examples you can see on the slide. The United States passport is commonly used. That's a federal document. And state driver's licenses are also commonly used. That's a state document. Either one of those is considered valid as a pilot ID. As the pilot, let's also talk about a personal self-assessment. Now, you're already familiar with the I'm Safe checklist, the PAVE checklist, risk assessment and personal minimums. This is a discussion that we want you to have one-on-one specifically with your flight instructor. Review the I'm Safe checklist. That's in the AIM Chapter 8. Review the PAVE checklist and review risk assessment and personal minimums with your flight instructor. Finally, when we talk about the pilot, what about the equipment we want to take on this flight with us? Well, of course, I'm going to take my headset and a pen, and that ought to just about do it, right? Well, we want to think a little bit beyond that. In this slide, you can see an example of some recommended equipment. We call this the EFB. That stands for your electronic flight bag. So you want to make sure that you have the necessary charts and publications and that they are current. Of course, you want to have your headset, and if you haven't thought about noise canceling, please think about that. You're going to need a pen and a pencil, maybe some spares of both. You're going to need a pad to write some notes down. You can see in the example here, we're showing a knee board. That allows me both to hold my iPad and have a place to make notes. I've got a nice flight bag here to put it all in. I'm going to have my E6B flight calculator or my electronic flight calculator. I might have sunglasses and a hat with a bill to protect my vision. And then finally, don't forget, we want to stay hydrated throughout this flight. Oftentimes at altitude, the air is drier and the flight may be of a long duration, and we want to stay hydrated, so don't forget that water. Well, folks, that just about wraps up what we're looking for as the pilot when we take off on an instrument flight. So join us next time.